We got another Buick here, folks. It's the Enclave. We'll look and see what year it is here in a second. Lady says that the engine light is on, and it is. I saw it when I drove it in. And she also has a complaint of the tire pressure sensor light on, which it was. So let's turn the key on here. It's a service tire monitor system, so I assume it just has a sensor going bad. So let's see what we have in it for codes for the engine light. So we got this printout. It's a little easier to see than that screen. So it looks like we got 2 codes in the engine, a couple in the HVAC module, and the remote control door lock receiver. So that would be your TPMS here on the Chevy. Engine wise, what do we have here? We got a P119 engine coolant temp sensor circuit intermittent. So that's interesting. And then a small EVAP leak, which is never a big surprise on General Motors. And then our TPMS right front tire pressure sensor and right front tire pressure sensor. So assuming they're in the correct position, never diagnose a GM based off that code alone. So I guess the one thing we need to look at is that P0019 engine coolant temp sensor circuit intermittent. So that's kind of interesting. I wonder if there's any freeze frame data on that. There's going to be a bit of a glare, but we're going to go over here to this little snowflake. Oops. Try this again. And see what it was doing at the time of failure and see what it recorded. Yeah, see at the time it recorded, it was 185 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's see if there's any other. Yeah, intake air temp was 75 degrees. Already been running for 4 minutes, so that's plausible. So I guess it didn't capture it at the moment there, so that's pretty interesting. Now I just started the car up to drive it in, so it shouldn't really be warmed up, but I'm not going to make a classic rookie mistake. We're going to back right out of OEM data. We're going to go into generic OBD2. So, and the reason we do that is we don't want to get stuffed by a substituted value. So when we look at OBD2 data, we're going to see raw data all the time. So we've just got the one code here. It says, let's see. So this is only showing codes for the EVAP leak. Current, pending, and permanent. Oh, hell, let's watch it go through a warm-up cycle anyways here. Yeah, as we can see right now, it's sitting about 93 degrees Fahrenheit. Underhood intake air temps 118. It's pretty toasty out today for October. So I'm going to take and start it up, and then we're just going to see if the coolant temp sensor glitches just during normal startup, and then we'll do a visual inspection, maybe wiggle the connector, things like that. If that makes sense. So I'm going to watch this warm up. If it does something funny, I'll kick the camera back on, but in the meantime I'm going to look up, see where this coolant sensor lives. But I just kind of want to let it go on its own for right now before we touch anything. 125 apparently. It was right down there by the oil dipstick. It's got that sleeve around it. Boy, it looks awful familiar, like I've done one of these in the past. And I don't remember why. But that looks awful familiar to me. There, we just saw it get dumb. I wasn't even paying attention, but it's holding here about 170. Oh, yep, there it goes, see. Alright, so now you guys are seeing it. It was holding, like, say, about 170. I look over and it was kind of coming down. I was like, oh, it's weird. Maybe the thermostat just opened. But then I just, like, boop, dropped down to, like, 140. But now you guys can see it glitching. So it must be right around that. Yeah, so it's going 138, 147, 174, back to 180. So, yeah, it gets about this temperature. So that makes sense with our freeze frame data that we saw, because the freeze frame was showing 185. And that's probably where we're about actual temperature, and then that must be where it starts glitching. All right. So, yeah, not a big deal. I am kind of curious if it set a pending code for that. Code set criteria was like had to have a greater than 9 degree fluctuation, implausible, but yeah, no, it didn't set a pending code for it, but clearly we see that it's an issue. Some things to keep in mind, you know, prior to doing that, obviously make sure it's full of coolant, you know, the normal stuff. I was just speaking with the customer a minute ago, and she did state that she's been noticing that the temperature gauge was fluctuating up and down erratically also. So that also aligns with that code. Said she'd just be driving along and she'd see the gauge drop down and then go up and then drop down and then kind of read right, and then it would be a little while after that she'd get her engine light. So at any rate, I did check. The local parts store does have one of them bad boys. Take and get this thing out of the way. And I think the other thing we ought to do before we get too carried away, let's find out which tire sensor's gone bad in this thing. Start right here on the left front. Trigger that one. We'll go around. I think it was the right front that was suspect according to the code. And as I told you guys, sometimes that doesn't always stand true, because if somebody didn't program them when they rotated the tires, then where the car thinks the right front is, it isn't. But in this case, it looks like it probably is, because this should have triggered by now. I'll let it go till it times out. Alright, we got the big fail on that one. So come back here, we'll just double check all of them here. Usually they trigger pretty quickly. And then all we've got left is the left rear. Trigger that one. Okay, so indeed this one is correct. The right front has failed. I keep these Autel MX sensors in stock, dual frequency. They cover everything we ever work on. So we're going to pop out into programming. We'll select right front. We'll go auto create. It's going to look for the sensor here, and we'll identify that in a minute. It's still in the box. And then it will just write a unique ID to it. It says one sensor detected. Hit OK. It's going to write you know, a unique ID to this sensor, and then we'll just pop it in the wheel, and then we'll just you know, retrain the sensors once they're on the car. So let that finish. Yeah, these Autel sensors have been great for us, and they're relatively inexpensive too. You can get them at right out of Napa. All the car places around here sell them, or you can get them on Amazon. But and then this is the ITS 600 by Autel. So this tool is pretty handy. So that's that. Let's get the wheel off. I've got a coolant temp sensor coming for it, so we'll get after it. So this could bring up the question just real quick. We'll address it. How do we know it's the sensor? Well, I guess to be definitive, we don't. We can assume, but we can do a quick circuit check on it. So right here, I've gone and unplugged the coolant sensor. Kind of a piss pot to get to. It was toasty too. I had to put on a glove. So we're at minus 40. That's what we expect to see. And then when we short it, it should go to around 300. I'll put it in a graph here because I can't hold it and do everything here all at once. We're just going to short it with a pair of pliers if we can reach across it, which we can't. Let me get a couple of T-pins. Just going to lightly front probe it and touch the pins together. Yep, and it went up to 302 is the max temp, so 302, that's totally shorted, and then back to minus 40 open circuit. So that tells us that our wiring from here to the PCM is good. PCM can calculate, probably just through a code there, here dinging. You know, granted, you could have a PCM that's failing and this and that. The sensor's like, you know, 20 bucks, so, and it only takes a minute to change. So we're gonna just swap that out. We'll let it go through a warm-up cycle, and that's that. So kind of an easy one, folks. So the other thing we have to look at, I almost forgot, is the small EVAP leak. So we're going to go into active tests here. We're going to go into the vent valve. And we're going to look at fuel tank pressure. Okay, so fuel tank pressure. Right now, we should be at atmospheric pressure. So at this one, it's reading 1.43. We're going to close the vent, and it's pretty warm out today. It's like 80 degrees. We should see an increase in pressure here, and that's what we want to know is, you know, how big is this leak? The gas tank should be warm enough that in a period of time here that should start to build pressure. It looks like it's building it pretty slow. I would have thought it'd been a lot more volatile than that. car. How much is in it? It says 10 gallons, just under half a tank. Canister vent valve's obviously working here, but we can see we're not building pressure very quickly here. When we go back, we're gonna revent it. Yeah, hardly changes at all, you know. Okay, let's just have a look at the obvious. This is a dirt road car. I guess we gotta find the clicker for this thing. Never mind, I just didn't click it hard enough. Let's just see if our filler neck's all rusty, and it is. So the top of the filler neck here is pretty dang rusty. It's probably where our leak is at. Not gonna hurt to clean it off anyways, but this is super common around here. The top of the filler neck gets super rusty. So for this next bit, I've gone ahead and I've removed the fuel tank from the car. You definitely would not want to do this with the fuel tank in the car. So take the fuel tank out, remove it, all the precautions. So there's that. I just use a brass cup there from the Harbor Freight. No, but again, don't do it with the gas tank in place. We're going to take a little bit of Sil Glide from Napa. Not a sponsor. We just rub a little around that lip. Kind of slow down the rust a little bit if we can. Is this the leak? I'm not sure. Was it a problem? Yeah. I'm going to put that on there. Get Mr. Hanky again here. A little schmoo on the cap. Okay. We're going to go to not venting. Okay, it's not venting, it is closed, and then we'll see if it can start to accumulate pressure and see how quickly. This is just kind of a quick and dirty test. It doesn't always work. Fuel has to be pretty volatile. We may end up just throwing a smoke machine on it here. Well, let's give it a minute or so. No real change there. Let's just do one other thing here before we hook up the Avoca smoker. Let's just start it up. I want to make darn sure the purge isn't stuck open. These cars are pretty good about setting codes if they are. So we're going to start it. And we don't want to see any pressure change here. We're going to go to not venting. We're going to close the vent. Oh, you see that? It's putting it under a vacuum. But we shouldn't have any purge running right now. We don't. Purge is at 0. And it's drawing the tank into a vacuum. So let's go to venting. Let's open it up. Purge valve. Oh, purge valve just opened. Here, stand by, folks. It's gonna be noisy out there because the coolant sensor is unplugged. I got the engine off right now. We're gonna go to purge valve. I think we just have a bad purge valve, which wouldn't surprise me. We're going to keep this. We're going to keep it commanded at 0%. And then we're going to look at tank pressure. That should not change. Okay, so let's go ahead and start it. And it automatically puts it into a vacuum. It starts drawing it. Even though our purge is at 0, you can see, you know, from where it was a, 0.19. It's not leaking much, but it's leaking. So let's pop back out of here. We'll go to vent valve test. We shut the car off, back on. I just want to make sure, so our purge valve is at 0%. We're going to go to not venting. We're going to close the back door. We're at 0%. We should have no vacuum in the tank. And you can see it's immediately putting the tank into a vacuum, even though the purge is at 0%. So we have a bad purge valve, so that's easy. So the reason I check it like that, A, it's easier, and B, sometimes you touch these suckers and they start working miraculously. So we're gonna try to just squeeze the tabs here, unplug it. So this is the vapor line. Oops, that might have just made it start working. Usually you whack them with a screwdriver, they'll work in. This is the vapor line that runs to the tank. And then to make sure it's not stuck electrically, we just simply unplug it. But sometimes that's all it takes, and then they'll start working again. So let me see if I got a vacuum gauge here. There we go. Let me get it out of my toolbox. I don't use this baby too often. We'll hook it up, and you guys should be able to see the vacuum on it, providing it's still broken. Like I say, sometimes a little screwdriver whack will make them work again. Stick that on there. I'm going to go ahead and start up. The fans are going to be roaring again, but if this is still broken, it's completely unplugged, so that, you know, the PCM can't be commanding it. And then we should see it build vacuum. This is often overlooked when it comes to EVAP leaks, but if you don't understand how it runs its small leak test, that'll get you every time. Here comes the lawnmower. So there we go. We have full engine vacuum. All right. You guys can see that. Got lawnmower man out there. Oops, I don't have a screwdriver, but I got this thing. I'll whack it a little bit. Still has vacuum. No, this one's broke. So, wide open. Wide open throttle on this one. Alright, so that's easy. I stuck a little test port inside this plug here. I'm not going to click it all the way. I just want to be able to hold my finger over it. We're going to go back to the vent valve test, and we should be able to see the tank build pressure now. Let me turn you guys down here. I'm just going to hold my finger over it and plug it. So we're going to go to, there's our fuel tank pressure. Go not venting. Make sure it closed. It's not venting. And we should see a steady rise in pressure now that we've got the system sealed. We know our gas cap sealed. We've got our purge valve sealed off here now. And we should just see this slow and steady uptick. And this is, you know, not like a, you know, 100% way to do it. But after a while, you start to learn the amount of pressure increase on a, you know, normal day when your gas tank's warm and volatile and the fuel's expanding, or the vapors, I guess, and it starts to build pressure. You can kind of see it, just it's very steady at building pressure here. I don't know the words I'm looking for, but you'll get it. And this will typically mean that there's not a leak. Now, it could still fail a leak test, but this is just a quick and dirty way to see, you know, do we have a big leak? And then when I remove my thumb from the purge valve here, we'll see it go right back to atmospheric pressure. We're very close to it, as we just did. You know, then I put my thumb back over it and then watch it build pressure again. So when we get a good purge valve on here, our problems will be resolved, and we don't have to bust out the smoke machine because we just did it like this. Oh, dang it all. That's what I didn't want to do. I got that. I got that. I put a little fry lube on there. To trigger the right front wheel here. Alright, so now we have all of our tire pressure sensors reading here, and we're going to go to relearn, and we're going to do an OBD relearn here, so that way we don't have to put the car into relearn mode, which GMs are pretty easy, but this will just go through the process for us. Otherwise, most GMs you just do them with the key fob. So this is going to write all of our IDs for us. Once that's done, it gives us the thumbs up. So that's it. So our tire light should be out now. We're just key on, engine off. And the light's still on. I don't want to start it because I'm waiting for the sucker to cool down. I'll show you here as soon as we're done. We'll take and fire it up. This worked out good. We got one from Standard Motor Products. When the OE fails, trust Standard. Not a sponsor, but I checked with Napa. Never any parts available. That's what that stands for. They did not have a purge valve or a coolant sensor for a 3.6 GM. You can imagine that. A lot of times on these I like to go OEM, but of course with our big Union Auto Workers strike, we can't get any parts OEM, so that kind of sucks. These things are pretty failure prone. They're even more failure prone aftermarket. Their statement here, when OE fails, trust Standard. Probably not so true. I think the OEM ones are made by Bosch. It's probably an aftermarket. Oh no, it's not. Yeah, the OEM ones are Bosch. They do pretty well. This one will be back in about a year, if we get lucky. So Standard Motor Products, same ones if we bought Enclave from Napa, same brand. They make the parts for Napa. Electronics, Enclave stuff. So we'll stick that on there. Now let's see, we'll do this one like that. Stick the little metal sleeve in there. Shimon. And then put the other rubber here, like so. And stick your bolt in there so you've got her all assembled like that. Spit on it a little. Usually the classic spit trick works. There she goes. Slid her right in. Line up our bolt. Wow, this is your first time, fella? There we go. Keep trying, little guy, you'll get it. Don't go crazy with them. As soon as that baby stops turning, stop turning. So we'll plug it in, plug it up. Let's see if we still have pressure on it. She's still pretty warm. Oh yeah. No radiator hoses are pretty solid still. Oh, I don't really want to make a huge mess. We'll send this here to the Steuben County landfill and do our part. Making the mountain. We have to pull this off to get to the radiator cap. We should be smart about it and just go ahead and do that so we can take any pressure off it. So these are pretty easy. You just pull the centers up in them and then the little push nail will come out, and you do that about 10 more times here. Get to those and just keep working your way along. You'll have it off in no time. Sometimes you get one that's stubborn. Get underneath of that little fella. There we go. Well, I don't think we need to unhook that. We just need to get your radiator cap. I'm going to leave those rubbers hooked up on the ends. Get out your General Motors radiator cap removal pliers. Must have been just being a puss. Alright, so I just want to take the cap loose, and now we're going to put the cap right back on. It's highly convenient how they hide it under the plastic. I think it's a 3/4 socket. We'll see if we can't spin that out and then spin the new one right in without losing a lot of coolant, slash all of it, and without burning ourselves. There's really not much to see, or much that I can show. So I used a 1/2" drag deep socket so it would fit around the sensor. We probably ought to get the new one first. Also brought to you by Standard. Not a sponsor. They're from Mexico, it says. So there's that. That's all she looks like. And let's see how we can do this. Am I going to be able to reach in like this? Kind of want to get this figured out. We'll figure it out once it starts happening. Oh, she's nothing coming out at all. Perfect. Oftentimes, if you take the cap off, put it back on, granted there's no other big way for air to get into the engine or into the cooling system, you're usually in good shape. And then just be careful with your socket, you don't actually break the sensor, you know, the plastic portion of it. So don't have any unusual sideways pressure on the plastic, on your socket rather. So you're gonna want to torque that to factory specs. We'll come back and do that here in a minute. And it's kind of a pisser to get the connector off because it does have this heat shield over it. You kind of got to pull that up, but they don't give you a lot of extra harness. And so we're just going to plug it back in here, kind of by feel. I can see a little bit there. Get it around there. I have to stand right where you guys are. Once you get it plugged in, got to get the little insulator back over top of it. I know the lighting is not the greatest for you guys, but just put that back on there. And if you gave the dipstick a slight relocation, grab a hold of that and give it a little tug back over. And there you go, that's it, we're done, we're out of here. Hey, what are you doing?
I'm back.
How'd it go? Are your teeth nice and shiny now?
She said my teeth were immaculate.
Are you kidding me?
No.
You wanna know what she told me this morning?
I had a different lady.
Oh, you had a different, you didn't have my lady?
No.
Oh, frigger. I don't like my lady.
I know.
She told me that I need to brush my tongue better.
Weird, I've never had
the back of it, then she pushes it on it so I gag.
Oh, that's why you don't brush it?
Uh-huh.
That's why you don't brush it?
Yeah, you think, you know, don't brush out my throat hole too much. But anyhow. Now it's just a matter of putting all these little guys back in. Oh yeah, I had to go skip my cleaning today. The lady that does my cleaning, I don't like that lady. Man, she's rough. Heavy-handed. And then I had to go to the orthodontist after that. And I've got what they call power chains. They sound cool, but they hurt like hell. And I can't run any faster or do anything, even though they're supposed to be power chains. Do-do-do. Let's put this baby back on. Oh gosh dang it. The little rubber thing that goes around the oil hole here, they're always swollen. There you go, you got line it up. There. What a ridiculous design. GM has always had this where you gotta pull the oil cap, which conveniently is recessed in a hole. And it's always full of dirt and seeds and stuff. Whoever thought that was a good idea. Fired up. Tire light is out. Let's go to trouble codes here. We'll clear them babies out. She's taking off on us. Alright, our codes are erased. We can watch our data again. Coolant temperatures at 116, 118 and climbing. So we'll watch that. That's all we really need to watch. We'll let her warm up. I made it up to 174 right now. I was going to say 172, 174, and this is about the temperature where it was goofing up before. And it's been nice and steady on the way up so far. You see we're 176. I'm going to continue to watch this for a few minutes. Oh, we're looking pretty good, folks, I think. I think we're going to call it. I'm pretty happy with it. Back out of here. I guess that's it, folks. Everything looks good, appears to be functioning. We've fixed everything this lady wanted to fix. All of her lights are out now. So we fixed the coolant temp sensor, which seemed to be intermittent. Had the code and OEM data, but nothing stored in generic OBD2, which is kind of weird. Not going to think about that too much. But we were able to see it fail, so that's good. We were able to prove, yeah, your coolant sensor is going wonky, and it's pretty easy one to change. So we just, popped it in there, and then I let it get up to about 194 there last I looked at it, and that seemed to be going good. Tire pressure sensor was just a failed sensor, so not a big deal there. Car's got 90,000 on it, I think. People always ask that, so I'll tell you. 96,000, 96,019 on this little guy. What else did we do? Oh, and we found the purge valve to be the cause of the small EVAP leaks. So don't overlook that when you're looking at EVAP testing. Read the theory and operation of how and when it runs its small leak tests. A lot of these are key off tests, like natural vacuum leak detection, that kind of stuff. Typically on these, when the purge valve fails and it's stuck, wide open, you'll get a code generally for excessive purge flow or purge during a non-purge flow event. I don't remember the numbers right offhand. I'm kind of surprised that wasn't in there, because that did seem to be, it was stuck pretty good. Perhaps that was, down the pipeline here. But with the coolant sensor failing, coolant sensor is a huge player in your drive cycle monitor. If your coolant sensor doesn't work correctly, it usually will nix the whole drive cycle and won't run the monitors correctly or at all. So that perhaps is why we didn't have, a purge during a non-purge event code, or, excessive tank vacuum, or unable to bleed tank vacuum. There's a lot of different codes they can throw. But GM EVAP systems in general in a whole are quite simple to work on. They're about as basic as they come, and they're about as failure prone as they come. I would say they probably, not just dissing on GM, but they're probably one of the most troublesome, failure prone, worst EVAP systems out there. I think Chrysler does a little bit better, and that ain't saying much. Anyhow, why don't you guys do me a solid down in that comment section? Questions, comments, the Insta, the Facebook. You guys know where to find us. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.